Morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir.
Great. Class, how are you? Class, how are you? Great. So today's talk is about thinking education differently. So first of all, let's understand what is education. And let's not confuse education with literacy. What's the difference? What we are getting in our school and the degree that you are receiving is not education. It's mere literacy. And education is more holistic. In India, more than 80% of people are youths. And yet, 1 in every 3 youth is either unemployed or not in education. What's the challenge? Why is this happening? When we talk about education, we talk about holistic approach of learning anything. We talk about not just learning from the books. We not talk about only learning for getting the grades. We talk about something more than that. What is that thing? Why 1 in 3 is not employed? What's the reason behind? Let me break the ice today. For me, ice is intent, content, and environment. What is I? Intent. When a student is learning in a school or in a college, what's the intent behind learning? Are you guys going to a school to learn anything today? To learn something new today? Or you are going to get good grades today? कि आज मैं जो पढ़ूंगा, because of that, I could able to get good marks. Or are you going to learn something new every day? Today I'll learn something new. Are you going for that? So how to create that intent in students is more important. And it's not just about a student. It's about the whole ecosystem. Student, teachers, or faculties, the institution themselves. Second is content. Are we learning the relatable content that is required? Are we able to relate to what we are learning in school? One of the examples that I want to give you here, which is related to content and contextual learning. In a lot of books, we basically learn, and it is quoted as, once there lived a poor farmer in a village. That means, if you are a farmer, you are poor. And if you are poor, you are living in a village. And then we want our villages to be sustainable. How? Because that is what our students have learned for 12 years. 12 saal baad, when they come out, they feel like, if I want to do something, I have to get out of this village. And if I won't be a farmer. Because farmer to poor hota hai, which I don't want to be. This is just one example that I'm giving about. And this content actually affects the intent. And third one is the environment. Are we giving our students the right environment to learn? Are we giving them the right tools to learn? By 2030, in India, we need 80 million plus jobs. And these jobs are something which are not there today. Most of them will be STEM oriented. STEM being science, technology, engineering, and maths. Are we really preparing them for the world? If a student today is joining a school in grade 1 in 2025, he will get out of his college in next 15, 16 years. So are we preparing him or her for 2040? Is our system a future ready? The answer is big no. How do we do this? How do we have this ICE in place, intent, content, and environment in place? With this problem statement, I started my initiative from one of the island villages in Odisha, and this island is known as Bayalis Moja. It's a group of 42 villages where I was born, and this entire initiative we started there. With just this thing in mind, how do we create this ice? How do we break this ice? How do we create that intent? And in content, we have tried to develop something because, as I've given you the statistic, by 2030, we need 80 million more jobs and more problem solvers around. Most of the jobs will be entrepreneurial. So how do we create this thing? By entrepreneurial, I mean problem solving. How do we teach them problem solving? And I must believe all the students who have joined here from management institution must be knowing design thinking. So design thinking has two aspects to it, and it is directly related to problem solving. If we talk about design thinking, it has two meanings. How to design your thinking and how to think of a design. These are the two aspects to it. But how do we teach design thinking to school students? And when we started teaching this, we eventually got to know the kind of nomenclature that is there is only for college students, not for school students. And eventually, very difficult for the village students. How to teach them design thinking? If we want them to solve their problems, 70% of people in India still stay in villages. So our most focus should be on the students who are there in the villages. How to find it out? We formulated a formula which is known as FATAC, F-A-T-A-C. It's basically feel, align, think, act and check. Now when we go to a village, we teach the student, कभी भी कोई problem आए, तो फटाक से फटाक लगा दो. Which means, if you have any of the problem, you just use the formula FATAC. So what is basically FATAC? And it's very useful for everyone. And this is the most simplest design thinking class ever. F is feel. Feel the problem. Generally, we have been taught in our schools, when you get a problem, directly go to the solution. But design thinking is all about feeling the problem first. Second is aligning the problem statement, because if you go to the user have some different perspective. When you feel the user, you align the problem statement. Think, T is basically think of ideas. You have dozen of ideas. A is basically act. In act, you can also prototype it. And C is basically check. And if you are not satisfied with it, go again, do FATAC again. The second problem was, students came up with, so for this particular problem, I have 10 ideas. Which idea to use? Which idea to go ahead with? So then we have this formula which is known as DMW, not BMW. DMW is doable, moneyable, wantable. The 10 ideas you're talking about, which one is more doable, which one is more moneyable, and which one is more wantable. So find that formula, put it inside, and find out which is more doable, moneyable, and wantable. So now it's easy for a student to find out the solution of any of the problem that is there. When we started implementing these kind of a thing, we saw a lot of changes in students. Eventually, we thought of how do we scale this? How do we take it to the students? The next challenge was even bigger. And we always talk about thinking unthinkable and doing it. जब लोग कहें नहीं, आप कहें क्यों नहीं? With this mindset, क्यों नहीं हो सकता ये चीज? Why is this not feasible, viable? क्यों नहीं हो सकता? क्यों इसको डिजाइन नहीं कर सकते? Why not we design it and put it in our villages? 95% of the schools in India don't have STEM labs. Or 90 million jobs we have to create by 2030, next 5 years. And 95% of schools don't have STEM labs. What's the challenges? First challenge, school don't have the adequate infrastructure that is required. Second, lack of teachers. First problem, less number of teachers. Second problem, quality teachers who can teach them STEM. These are the two biggest challenges. How do we solve it? In 2017, we started developing tinker spaces in every school. Eventually, we got to know we couldn't able to reach every student here in India. And if we are thinking something, think big. How do we service the students here? And what we started doing is something which is completely out of the box. Can we have movable STEM labs? How do we do it? So the first prototype we made was inside a shipping container. It's a 20 cross 8 feet shipping container, and we thought of how do we take it to students there. And we teach students that failing is important to learn. Conventional education talk about failure is something which is not acceptable. But failure enhances creativity. If a student is creative, he will try something new. And if he will try something new, there is a lot of probability that he will fail. And eventually when we started creating this, we got to know this model is not DMW, is not doable, moneyable and wantable. Mostly it's not moneyable because it's a big container and transporting from one school to other would be difficult. Eventually students started calling it as tow, tinker on wheels. And so it's literally towing. We are towing this lab from one school to other. The biggest challenge here was we can only accommodate 15 students inside this 20 cross 8 feet container. How do we accommodate more students here? Eventually we get to know if you get inside the infrastructure, it would be difficult. So we have to think something which will be outside. At the same time, we could accommodate more students. The challenge with this was this big container couldn't go inside government schools because they have small gate sizes. Then this is where a hardcore design thinking happened. We found out which vehicle can go inside a school, inside a village school. And the answer was a 3-wheeler auto. Then the question was, 3-wheeler auto mein how many students can go inside? The answer was 0. And now, we thought of something which is completely out of the box. So instead of going inside the lab literally comes out. And it's literally thinking outside the box. Because you have to bring everything outside it. The tables will come inside. You have all the 3D printing machines, robotics, soldering machines, everything, every tool that is required for a STEM lab. And you can learn here. Every school have a playground where you can put it here. And the entire playground now gets converted into a STEM lab. Now we can accommodate any number of students that are there. Eventually, this vehicle started roaming around in the city, impacting a lot of students. And we started getting other partners as well. This is something great going on. How can we partner with you? Recently, December, this vehicle went to Balasore, and there is a place with the name Soro in Balasore. And the vehicle actually went to that place. What amazed me was the story of these students. This is Satyajit, who was a student there in a government school. And we gave them a problem statement. How can you create a satellite in a school? And this guy went on to research and find out this year there is a satellite by Japan which is made from wood. And he came and asked me, why can't we make a satellite out of the bamboo which is there in my village? If they could do it with wood. We told, why not? His father was a carpenter. He went there, tried to find out the solution for it, and actually created his first prototype of a satellite made from bamboo. He also took 7 other students from neighboring villages asking, would you like to be a part of the team where we are creating this thing? And the tow which was going to school in the daytime, in the evening they were using it as their own research lab. The second story is of Rutuparna, and what she was doing was, she told, sir, satellite hum log ka jayega, it won't go up to the orbit. It will come down. We need to have a parachute to it. How do we create that? The old umbrella cloth. Her mother was a tailor. She took that old umbrella cloth and they made a parachute out of it. They not just made these things, but at the end of the day, they could able to made a CubeSat. So this is a satellite which you can hold in your hand. It's a 10 cross 10 cross 10 centimeter dimension worth of a satellite, which you can actually hold it. So now I'm not talking about something which is out of the education. I'm talking about something which students have built. Now think about, now they are not just learning about problem solving, they are actually doing it. And you know what? They also tried to launch it. So they tied this entire satellite on a helium balloon and tried to launch it. You know what? They were successful. They could able to launch it. It all went to 12 kilometers, show the data of their own place. They can see the temperature, humidity, and the altitude of this entire place, all done by these village students. It's not something hypothetical. It's happening. And what happened after this was 3,000 students from that place came together to witness this happening. And the biggest change that happened here was all the students of those who were sitting there had that thing in their mind. If this guy can do it, I can do it as well. That's the biggest motivation. The only thing that takes this student to take a big leap is that mindset. यदि वो कर सकता है, तो मैं क्यों नहीं कर सकता? Thank you so much everyone for listening me so patiently. Thank you so much. Namaste.